Vanity Reid Deterville is a proud trans woman of color, and here in Charleston, she's breaking lots of barriers. I sit down one-on-one with Vanity for a special edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And be sure to download the free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores, or listen to this interview later on the free iHeartRadio app.
Well, Vanity, it's so good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
I appreciate it. Well, I want to talk to you about something that's personal to you. And you were actually working at Chipotle at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But let me take you back to June 17th, 2015.
Okay.
What memories come back to your mind when you think of that night?
That was a very frightening day for me. I would say probably one of the most frightening days of my life because of my proximity to what happened, like physical closeness to it. I made a post on Facebook recently about being on break while I was at Chipotle and seeing the ambulance trucks rush past me as I was halfway through my food. I knew it was a Wednesday night, and if it's an AME church or any black church for that matter, it's typically Bible study, but by 9 or 9:30, everyone should be out of the church because Bible study should be over. That's just from personal context.
Right.
And so I just knew something was wrong because of the street being blocked off the way it was. And then I saw police cars racing also. And then I saw a person who then I learned that was Reverend Daniel Simmons escorted into an EMS where he later died at MUSC. So I went back to work at Chipotle and we were all getting the notifications on Live 5 and every other news outlet about what had happened. And initially it said that 8 people had been shot and killed, but then it was updated till 9, I believe, later that night. What happened next was even scarier. Police were coming around to businesses and there had been a bomb threat issued, and so we were highly encouraged to leave the peninsula or get away as far as possible. And so I went back home to West Ashley at the time, and didn't sleep at all. Didn't sleep, was very frightened by it. One of my childhood classmates' mother passed away from that massacre, and it hit really close, I think, for everybody here. It hit close, to say the least. I don't know how it happened, but I was actually contacted by BBC the next morning and gave a phone interview overseas with BBC about the impact that attack had on us, and so it's something that's still very dear to my heart.
3 years later, how would you describe those heroes, as many people are describing them, who were shot and killed at that church in your mind?
Timeless. I think anybody who stepped foot in that church at least once is timeless. This Thursday, I will actually be back in that church, helping lead a group of 10 to 14-year-olds in an art camp or an art initiative. But it will be the first time that I've been back in the church since about 4 years, at least, yeah. Prior to the attack, I had been in the church numerous times for different programs. But I would describe those individuals who were taken from us as timeless and forever with us. Yeah.
Let me get to you. I've known you for so long. And, these days you are considered a community leader by some in this town. I gotta go back because obviously this is the headline from the Charleston City paper, and this was from October 11th, 2017, and it reads this: homeless and hungry at America's most beautiful college.
Yeah.
And it talks about you and your story and your struggle. And I know that you are a trans person of color. How did you get from being homeless to now being a community leader, an advocate, and really helping others?
It was no cakewalk. That's for sure. I struggled with a lot when I was on the street. Substance abuse was one of them. I had a very bad addiction that I had to deal with by myself. And having someone who understood what it was I was going through currently was a significant portion of the support that I needed. I just needed somebody to empathize who had maybe gone through something similar before and to understand where I truly wanted to go. My life and how I live it authentically and how I walk my walk through the eyes of the patriarchy in this day and age is considered deviant. And so when you deviate from anything normal, you get outcast with all the other bad stuff. Does that make sense? Everything else that's deviant from the norm gets thrown, or you get thrown into that jumble also. So it was very hard figuring out both my identity and how to walk healthily and authentically at the same time. I got caught up in a lot of the drugs and rock and roll, to say the least. I became an advocate and a leader off of the things that have affected me personally and that I'm passionate about. I feel like any activist will tell you that they are acting for a cause that has affected them in some way personally or dearly. And that's what a true activist does, is they speak on things that have either crippled them or that they feel passionate about or has crippled a loved one. I've had a calling to educate and both reform the ways of our thinking for a long time. So that helped me solidify within my political science, public policy, my concentration, and it helped me identify what along advocacy I wanted to do. It took the help of many. I had a huge support system. Shout out to organizations like We Are Family, who are out here helping LGBT youth who don't have the structured support or the normal support system that other kids with their parents might have. There's a lot, you pose a risk when you put your child out of the house and they're uncertain of what they're going to do. There's a lot that comes your way within that first day and a half, maybe not even a full day. The possibility of being propositioned for sex, the possibility of being exposed to drugs you've never been exposed to. It's a lot that happens very quickly. And when you've depended on those things for a while, it takes the support of many to help you pull yourself back up, because some things you cannot do by yourself. So I'm here fighting for all those who have been in my spot, all those who are where I am right now, and all those who have helped me. And that's how we got here.
And all of this happened while you were here as a student at the College of Charleston?
Yeah, there was kind of an elongation of my college career. I started off in Atlanta. School became a little too pricey in Atlanta, so I came back home and I enrolled at the College of Charleston in 2015, and dropped out actually spring of 2015. And so this semester was the first year, or the first semester back in school in 3 years, full time. And I made that decision to go hard or go home. Okay. So full-time student, interning, going through the ropes, because I really wanted to lay a foundation for a solid career path, and to finally get that through. But I think it's also important to know, not only for myself, but for other college students, that there's no right timeline. And so we should stop being so comparative on other people's education path and their timeline and our own. Because now, had I not gone through the struggles I'd gone through, I wouldn't have had the activism experience. I wouldn't have had the volunteer experience under my belt. I wouldn't have been able to have gone through all the field outreach that I've done. So everything happens for a reason.
And I want to backtrack because before she passed away, your grandmother, I believe,
Yeah,
was your biggest rock.
yeah.
But your father and grandfather didn't approve of who you really are.
Well, you know how the patriarchy is set up. You know how men go. I come from a West Indian background. So, like I said, anything that deviates from that straight and narrow, because there's such a stronghold of Catholicism in the West Indian families, it strikes a feeling of fear. And so if you're doing anything that's outside the normal, you can't be under this roof. That's how it is. And I had to deal with that. And I knew that, which is why I navigated my life throughout the years the way I did. I'm not going to say it was a good thing that I was put out, but it's definitely something that needed to happen for my self-liberation. So yeah, everything that we go through, if we're still here, it was nothing more than we could bear. So I was built for it. It wasn't easy, but it helped me become who I am now.
You talk about now. Let me ask you, when did you know that you were a woman?
I knew. I knew very young, very, very young. I believe it was about 8 years old, and it was my grandmother, paternal grandmother, who I first told, and she didn't see a problem with it.
Okay.
I believe at that time she was the only person I had told that. I always had that feeling, but no, I don't think I told anybody else that up until I was about 22, 23. Yeah, she was the only person who really knew that the fullness of how I wanted to live my life. And so her first words were not to let my papa know, who's my grandfather, or for that matter, any of the men in my family. So I think she was really ahead of her time to have supported me that way. Just outright say, you know, I'm fine with it, I still love you. But that didn't stop the struggles or the trials that would come later on. But yeah, I knew since very young that I would live my life differently. Yeah.
And you talk about those struggles and those trials. I hope I'm saying this right, but you channeled all of that into a play, Sugar and the Grits.
Yes, I did.
What brought you to that? What attracted you to Sugar and the Grits?
So, it's actually, I worked with Elder Carly Town of the Gullah Geechee Angel Network, and I was showcased in Moja Arts Festival last October, which was, the storyline I believe was the first of its kind in Moja's history, to my knowledge. I could be wrong. But we wanted to bridge a connection between the LGBT community and the Gullah Geechee community, of which I occupy both. A friend of mine and myself met Elder Carly early 2017 after returning from a trip in Philadelphia. And she said she wanted to help bridge that gap also. After having met Melissa Moore, the director of We Are Family, we decided to work on a project that would be featured in Moja. I had no idea it was going to be a play about my life. That's not how it started. It didn't start like that at all. We just said that we wanted to work on a project that showcased the intersection between the two communities. And my friend Taekwon went off to teach his first year of school for Teach for America in Jacksonville. So the project was mainly left up to my brainstorming. So I thought, and I said, well, maybe if I wrote a play, because Elder Carly has done plays before. So I wrote a play, and it slowly started to turn into, where were you and where are you now? And so choosing the name Sugar and the Grits. I explained it a little bit in the first voiceover of the beginning of the play. And I basically asked the question where a trans woman of color belongs in this southern space. And I said it's basically like haphazardly placing sugar in the grits. You can do it, but it doesn't necessarily belong. Grits symbolizing a crop that's very indigenous to this area. Right. Sugar representing the femininity that I embody. Okay. And so there goes the title. Yeah. When you say the title, it makes some people feel uncomfortable or question it. They'll be like, sugar in the grits, or do you put sugar in your grits? What is this about? So I wanted that like questionable feeling for people to say the title over and over. So, you know, we pulled that off.
Is there anything in the play that you wish you could display in your real life?
What do you mean?
Is there something you did in the play that you wish you could do right now in real life?
Is there something I did in the play? Let me think about that. That I wish I could do in real life? I don't know. I mean, everything I did in the play was reality. Okay. I didn't really make anything fictitious. Right. So the timeline of the play led from, like I told you, 8 years old, or when I first voiced that difference to my grandmother, up until about 22. Yeah. I don't really... In the play, no. And I guess I'm going to leave a little gap there because there are people asking me to do the play again. I was going to try to do it for Spoleto, but then I might have to wait until next year. Okay. Since I just got back into school, I was really just focusing on delving into my schoolwork and focusing on that. But it's possibly something I'll consider for Spoleto next year. Or casting it through the theater department at the College of Charleston. So yeah, it's going to happen again. I was just a little hesitant on when I would start it again, so I don't want to put too much out there, you know.
Oh, no worries. Let me ask you this. What is the biggest difference between you at 8 years old and you now at 22, 23, and beyond?
I would say the only real difference between 8 years old and now, one would be physical appearance. Okay. The second would probably be my thought process is somewhat the same, but understanding the world around me relative to my thought process is different. We live in a very hostile climate this day and age, politically. And so understanding where I fit in within that political realm is very important, especially in terms of laying a foundation for my own career and my own livelihood. We're all interconnected some way, but funds and support really drive the agenda on most issues. So being able to voice effectively issues so that they become an item on agendas or concern for people to donate to or to invest in is something that's really been interesting to me. I wanted to be a judge. It was my first ever job that I said I wanted to be. I felt like I had that impartial disposition about myself. But as I got older, I kind of strayed away from the thought of law school. Okay. But like I said, policy reform is still like in my foresight somewhere. So I still think that I have somewhat of an impartial view on life. I like to look at both sides of why policies are created, who they benefit, who they disenfranchise, and figure out why we have polarized sides anyway. So yeah, I would say within my heart, nothing has changed from that, but physical appearance and my understanding about the world around me relative to me.
And obviously you and I have something in common. I was in the City Paper front cover in 2016. Of course, you were on the front page.
You had me beat. Wow, you did. You had a lot of people beat.
Oh, thanks. It's all the grace of God. But, you know, I know that a lot of people set up a lot of people donated to my GoFundMe account, which allowed me to have this camera and tripod and everything. Thank God for them. What was it like for you? Because my life changed right after the City Paper cover story.
Yes.
How did your life change?
Drastically. I began meeting people who I did not know. And yeah, I've just been plugged in and connected with a lot of good to know people. It was, when was it? I think the City Paper article came out right after the play, if I'm not mistaken. It came out right after the play. And the month prior, I had met Sarah McBride, who was the National Press Secretary for the Human Rights Campaign.
Right, I remember that.
We had a panel discussion for Charleston Pride at the College of Charleston. And I remember her tagging me in a post saying that she was reading a copy of the City Paper I think someone had given her.
Wow.
And that was really cool for us to have followed each other on social networks.
Right.
I was asked to speak at the Women's March earlier this year,
Right.
Which was very huge. And when I went to DC in January, as a part of the convention and a protest in front of Trump Hotel on Pennsylvania Avenue, you know, being interviewed by BuzzFeed, and you know, I'm very thankful for the connections that have happened for me and that I have made after that article. There are a lot of people my age who have come up to thank me about the story, who have come up to thank me about the work that I do. And so I use that as a driving force to keep going, because it's not always peaches and cream. It's not. Being out in the field and doing hands-on work sometimes, like true grassroots work. I know a lot of funds come from the top down, but true grassroots initiatives are not always pretty or fun. And so that continues to fuel me.
If there were another trans woman of color sitting right next to me and I'm doing an interview with that person, and you were sitting here as the interviewer, what would you say to them one-on-one?
I would tell them, and I'm going to speak to them as if they were from Charleston as well.
Okay.
I'm going to tell them, I know it's hard and I know you want to leave, but what good is that going to do the other girls that are coming up after you who were born in the same city? Who will they have to look to once you leave? Being from the South, and in this city specifically, we have a lot of separatism and classism when it comes to the resources and when it comes to these social groups and everything. And a lot of the trans women, especially the trans women of color that I know, and I know a few who are from Charleston, have up and left because they feel like resources are better, just overall living is better. And so my whole goal is to pave a way or a light for the girls to see themselves in that they may not have seen before.
That is so good to hear. Wow. Well, Vanity Reid Deterville.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate this.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm talking to a real friend here.
We are real friends.
Thank you.
No problem.
I appreciate this.
Thank you.
Thank you.